All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a super impromptu live session. I have almost nothing planned except I did get this box in the mail and I wanted to open it up for you. But before that, if you're randomly coming to this video without even knowing who you are looking at, my name is Björk Van Benediktsson. I am the founder of Audio Issues and the author of Step by Step Mixing. And I'm here to help you confidently finish your mixes so you can be proud to release your records. Today we're gonna just talk about what's in the box, like Stephen Evans is saying here in the chat. What's in the box? It's definitely not Gwyneth Paltrow's head. I can verify that. Thankfully not. There's at least nothing liquidy coming out of the bottom, so we could be sure about that. I'll be opening up in just a minute, but I wanted to ask, just let me know who you are, where you're calling in from, or where you're watching from, and if you have any questions about music production and mixing, I can answer them or grab them during our session. Probably won't be here for very long, but I'd love to help you out in any way I can while I am live. So yes, let's start with a few questions. I did have some questions here to go through, and I've been sort of compiling some questions both from ads and emails and things like that. So I thought I'd tackle them before we get to the box. And I also have kind of a surprise extra gift that my wife gave me as I was prepping for the session, which coincidentally is very related to what's in the box, but these things were not planned ahead of time, so it'll be fun to tell that story in a bit. First of all, going to give you some value when it comes to mixing and production. Got this question or comment on an ad that I think was stupid, and thought I'd share it with you. Somebody was commenting on mastered mixes or radio ready mixes, and they said, it does not matter how good your mixes are, they're going to be over compressed, brick walled, ultra loud crap the moment they're mastered, which seems sort of stupid to say, because you have all the power to decide how your music sounds, especially if you do it yourself. But even if you have a mastering engineer, the big thing about working with a mastering engineer is having a relationship and a dialogue with the mastering engineer. So if you don't want, quote, over compressed, brick walled, ultra loud crap, then maybe just convey that information to your mastering engineer. Right. So that's a little pet peeve of mine there. Then I had a question or a comment from another person on Facebook. He said, I create my scores with Finale using virtual instrument samples to produce audio tracks. I pull those audio tracks into Audacity for mixing a single stereo output file. And then blah, 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 blah. Here's my problem. The Audacity features for reverb, echo, EQ, and compression are very hard to master. Yeah, because you're using Audacity, unfortunately. Those features are much easier to achieve in the Finale end of the process. So, yeah, it's a better software. I don't see how your recommendations, which are probably recommendations of what I recommend doing in the book. He says, I don't see how your recommendations will work for me without a significant and expensive change in my rig, software, and procedures. The only thing that I would really recommend you change is just simply not using Audacity. Get a better digital audio workstation, get a better audio software, and it does not have to cost you a significant and expensive change. It does not have to cost you that much. Reaper is, I think, $40, and you should have, if you are if you are planning on having any semblance of a career in audio and you can't spend $40 on the software that you want to use to help you with that career, you need to change your mindset a little bit, because you have to be thinking of the return on investment when it comes to your gear. You shouldn't buy gear just to buy gear because you're addicted to gear acquisition syndrome. You should be buying gear that helps you achieve the goal that you want to do, which is, in his case, creating scores, but in your case, you might be recording music, recording your own music, recording bands, mixing music, mastering music, things of that nature. So, yeah, Michael says, totally disagree with this statement. What statement is that? the about not having a conversation with your mastering engineer or getting a better DAW, because those are just my opinions. So and yes, get Reaper. Reaper is great. I use Logic. It's only $200. I don't think that's much for the amount of power you get for your audio software. But here, I just got this question via email today. It says, "Hey Björkman, online session drummer here. Gotten some good tips from you. Quick question: do I advocate putting an EQ on the drum bus first, then tweak into each individual channel? Thanks so much." Yeah, so I love tweaking the drum bus first. If you're a mix finisher formula student, or if you've read the step-by-step mixing book, then you know that I advocate having a mixing template and simplifying your mixes down to as few buses or groups as possible. However, when it comes to the drums, I usually do a drum bus and then a kick bus and a snare bus, tom bus, and an overhead bus, and they all sort of feed together in there. But I usually start by getting sort of an overall drum sound on the drum bus, and I do use bus EQ there, and then I use I usually go to the kick drum, for instance, and sculpt the kick drum sound, sculpt the snare drum sound. But EQ really does, I feel like, reacts really well when there's a lot coming into it, and you don't have to do drastic boosts or cuts to sort of shape the sound that you're looking for. So yes, definitely put an EQ on the drum bus first, and then if needed, tweak each individual channel. It's a good process to have, because you might not need to do as much EQing if you do it that way. Any questions here? Oh, I disagree with the actual statement of the guy. Yeah, no, I think that's where you're coming from. Yes, I think that you can get as dynamic masters or mixes as you want if you just decide that that's what you want. There's not a lot more to it than that. I get a lot of curmudgeon-y, grumpy old man comments on Facebook on occasion, and a lot of times they are not necessarily based in reality. The Volts is here. Hi, Björkman, still using GarageBand, but considering Logic, even though I'm happy with my results. I would recommend upgrading if you find that you have if you're hitting a wall, if you're hitting the limits of what GarageBand can offer you. Upgrading to Logic seems like a solid choice to go, or solid way to go, because you already know how GarageBand works. Logic works very, very similarly. It's sort of the big brother, and so I think you can open GarageBand files in Logic too, and it's just infinitely more flexible when it comes to plugins, routing, software instruments, those sorts of things. So yeah. So I would recommend, I mean, if you have like I said before, $200 I don't think is a lot to spend on audio software if you're going to be using that to get a return on your effort. $200 to get increased happiness from being able to produce faster, mix faster, create better songs is worth it. So and if you're in a band, maybe you can work out a deal with your bandmates, so you all go in together on it or something like that. I don't know. Or you can ask for it for the next upcoming gift. Maybe it's a birthday gift, or well, Christmas already come and gone, but just try to get it as fast as fast as possible, because I'd rather have you creating than hitting walls on your in your creativity. Angela says, I use Studio One Pro, love it. Yeah, I tried to switch over to Studio One not too long ago, and I couldn't do it. And I think it has nothing to do with Studio One as a software. It has everything to do with the fact that I have been using Logic for 10 years, and it's really the switching costs of figuring out a new piece of software is just way, way, way too high. So Studio One, I know my buddy Joe Gilder over at Home Studio Corner. Go check that guy out. He has some killer Studio One tutorials. So check those out if you need help with Studio One. And he loves it. I think he even works for them now. And totally recommend the software, but it's really just not about. It's not about I don't get into DAW wars. I don't get into what's the best audio software for you, because the answer is that the best audio software for you is the one that you use the most, or that you're most comfortable using, or is easiest for you to learn, or helps you achieve the desired results the best in your. And some DAWs are better than others when it comes to specific types of music or specific types of tasks. Ableton and FL Studio, really good for beats and electronic music. Logic Pro is pretty solid when it comes to singer-songwriter, sort of home studio musician, doing everything in the box there. Studio One, Pro Tools, and all those. These are all high-class DAWs. It's really just about the amount of time that you're willing to put into learning the first one, or the time you were willing to put in to learn another one. It's really about switching costs when it comes to me switching to another DAW, and I just simply can't do it. It's just none of my keyboard shortcuts work in Studio One when it comes to Logic, so I just feel like I'm completely incapable and unqualified as an engineer when I switch DAWs. So that's why I just stick to Logic Pro, because it's great. All right. Michael says the DAW does not matter as long as you get what you're trying to achieve with it. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I meant. Cool. There's a few comments here that I wanted to. There's one, this email I got a while ago. It's been bothering me a little bit, because I think this is sort of people put up limiting beliefs, or put up sort of hindrances when it comes to achieving what they want with their music, with their creativity in general. And they try to bite off more than they can chew, or they try to they aspire too greatly when they should just take the next step. They're trying to fly before they can even crawl, or whatever you want to call it. But I got this email, and it's been bothering me for months. He says, I'm writing 5 albums at once for bands in mind, such as Oasis, Little Mix, Kasabian, Tom Walker, Amy McDonald. What advice would you give us to a songwriter who has about 200 songs written to make my dreams come true? Writing 5 albums all at once seems like you're doing too many things at once. You have big dreams, and I am all for big dreams, but in order for you to take action, your actions have to be realistic. So I would recommend start by finishing, producing, mixing, mastering, and releasing one song, and then rinse and repeat. Finish the entire process on one song, and then you can move forward. But focusing on, let's assume that these are 10-song albums, but focusing on 50 songs at any time, that's just, I don't even know how to think about that. That just makes my sort of brain short circuit. And it's sort of like if you're trying to go in 50 different directions at once, you can't really get in any one direction. You can't get far in any one direction. So I'd recommend focusing on one thing at a time, doing one thing at a time, and then rinsing and repeating. So one song, one record, then use that momentum to finish the rest of one album, and then rinse and repeat. And if you have similar problems and you're debating, oh, I don't know which one to pick, I have so many great songs, I don't know which one to pick, that's also a limiting belief, and that's a bullshit excuse that you say yourself, so that you let yourself off the hook to doing anything. If you say, I don't know which one to pick, then just pick any of them. Just pick song number 3. Pick the first song that comes to mind. It does not matter, because the only thing that matters is you working on them, not deciding between them. Deciding between them is worthless thoughts, but working on one is actually productive work. So think about that. If you never make a decision, you will never move forward. And it also brings me to something called comparison syndrome, because I don't know how often I've compared myself to somebody more successful, Graham Cochran, or more handsome, Graham Cochran, and and but you probably have something similar. You see famous authors, famous musicians, giant superstars, and you're comparing yourself to somebody that's already achieved all this fame and all this success, and it's going to completely stall your progress, because you can't just take one step and get to that level. It's a combination of tiny, tiny little steps over time. And it brings me to a quote that is from the book The One Thing by Gary Keller, I think his name is. And he says, he talks about comparison syndrome, and when great things really happen over time, it's the combination of all these little steps. And he says, when you see someone who has a lot of knowledge, they learned it over time. When you see someone who has a lot of skills, they develop them over time. When you see someone who has done a lot, they accomplished it over time. When you see someone who has a lot of money, they earned it over time. The key is over time. And so that brings me to this box, and the fact that so this book is one of my books, and I never would have written that book if I would have created unrealistic goals for myself. And that brings me to this box and what's in it. So I was originally going to open this box with this dumb little kitchen knife right here. However, as I was getting ready for this call, my wife brought me this, and as she said, this is my new dad present, because we're expecting a daughter any day now. We're actually getting kind of tired of waiting around for it. She's almost a week late of her due date, so clock's ticking, and we're getting tired of waiting around for her. We'd rather have her in our lives than being in this hurry up and wait sort of standstill. But she brought me this as I was getting ready for this call, and inside is a Wen knife, and this is a knife that I've dreamed about owning, and I just love the fact that I have one. This is a friend of mine. He's in Tucson. He is a custom knife maker. He makes beautiful. These are works of art. This is almost. I don't even know if I will actually make food with this or just frame it and put it on the wall. But I am still going to use it to open this box, because weirdly enough, this knife has something to do with what's in this box. So let's open it up. All right, and what is inside? Unfortunately, I hope that I'm not letting you down if you think it's like some fancy piece of gear, because it's not a fancy piece of gear. It is the first author copies of my latest book, You Get What You Give. I bought 25 copies of this book, and I've been waiting. The people that have ordered this book, and if you want a copy, you can go here. But people have been sending me pictures of this book, and then they have received their copy ahead of me, which kind of made me happy, of course, but kind of pissed me off that I'm the author and I don't get my copies before everybody else. But the funny thing, and the funny relationship between this knife, and I don't know if you can see, it's signed by the knife maker right there. It's beautiful, beautiful craftsmanship right there. And actually, in this book, there is a chapter where this knife is actually mentioned. So it's chapter 6, Creativity in the Kitchen, which follows Noah, who is the mentor character here. And I'm going to read just a bit of it. If you want to read the rest, you can get your copy on Amazon. But so, creativity in the kitchen. If the man's body was a temple, his kitchen was his workshop. Noah slid his custom Wen knife from the sleeve and gave it a quick sharpen on the steel. He flipped it around in his hands, admiring the craftsmanship. He was lucky enough to acquire one of the knives before they commanded 4 figures and sold out instantly. Don's waiting list, because he's so good at what he does, his waiting list is actually years. So you couldn't get one of these knives even if you tried. And it's just incredible that I have one right now. It's amazing to have. And I write, when you're too good to ignore, you're in demand and you command a premium. Although he always appreciated a good deal, he thought fondly of how exclusive the knives had gotten so far. Noah thought of it like an undervalued stock or an early-stage angel investment you could sell for many multiples its initial price. Of course, this knife was never going back on the market. It was a collector's item, although he still used it as a workhorse, never understanding why people bought things only to put them away, never to be used. So I guess since I did write that, I may have to actually use the knife. I can't just frame it and put it on the wall. Backburner by Alan Garr played softly in the kitchen, and Noah wondered how much of his advice had landed with the kid at lunch. The kid at lunch is actually Casey, the other character in the story, who is the sort of the protagonist, the hero that actually is rage quits his job at a marketing agency and starts setting up his studio and wants to learn how to set up a successful studio and get clients and customers. Whenever he met with a potential student, he always gauged them on a few criteria. The first amount was the amount of drive he could see in their eyes. If they looked like a racehorse eager to hurdle through 12 furlongs, he assumed they were ready for the marathon they needed to start training for. If they asked questions, shared freely, and looked like they were listening, he assumed they were open to learning and improvement. The last criteria he would know soon enough. It was only through action that one could thrive, and depending on the amount of action the kid would take in the following week, he could almost predict his success, like a graph where the x-axis was action and the y-axis was success. An object at rest stays at rest, and he knew the kid needed initial momentum to be off to the races. So I'm going to leave that there. If you I may make it as an audiobook sometime down the line, but I don't know if I will be the narrator because I don't think people need more of my voice in their lives. Saying that as you listen to me on Facebook or YouTube. All right, that's just a little bit of what I wanted to talk about. I have tons of copies here. I'm going to start sending these out. I might start giving these away. Maybe I'll do a giveaway soon. If you want me to create a giveaway, just write yes in the chat there, and I will send out an email to my email list with the giveaway details. I'll maybe send you a few copies of the book. If you don't want to wait, you want to get your paperback copy, or it's on Kindle too, just go to yougetwhatyougivebook.com and grab your copy there. If there are any particular parts of the book that you want that you're curious about, there's lots of Easter eggs. There's lots of songs in the book. There are reasons for these songs that are why they're in there. There are a lot of the characters are based on famous people throughout history, like Charles Schwab, Steve Jobs, all these sort of famous big thinkers and big entrepreneurs. Although Steve Jobs was kind of an asshole, he was still a visionary. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions about the book in general. So cool. Let's see if there's any questions here before we leave for today. It's almost 5 o'clock. Thought I'd just pop in and hang out with you guys for a minute. Angela says your step-by-step mixing was the best purchase for me. Too many nitpicks and forget the human factor. Yeah. Thank you for reading, Angela. Yeah, thanks a lot. That means a lot. Procrastination is the worst enemy of creation, says Michael. I agree with that. Procrastination is really just another, and perfection also, because perfection is really just another version of procrastination, because you're never going to achieve perfection. You're always going to find another way to make it better and make it better and make it better, and sooner or later you haven't achieved anything because you're too scared of actually releasing the thing that you did, when in fact it was probably good enough to use as momentum in your creative life, uh, you know 20 iterations ago. I say in the book too, I'm not gonna I can't find it, I don't know where it is, but good enough is good enough until you're good enough to be better. And the only way to get better is to actually sort of do the feedback cycle of creating, releasing, shipping your work, as Seth Godin says, and then and continuing, rinsing, repeating, continuing on the journey, because a creative journey, I don't think is ever going to end. You'll always find new ways to, new things to do, new creative cool stuff to create. If I didn't release this book, I probably would not have the readers or the success for me to be able to write and release this book. So they are all, everything sort of is related to each other. Everything sort of connects and builds on everything else. So whatever you're working on right now, try to get it as good as possible. But if you're just tweaking it for no real reason, just call it a day, release it, put it out there, and then work on something new. If you don't have a name for yourself, that's how you create a name for yourself. The famous people, the people you think are famous today, were not famous when they started, and you will not be famous with your first work of art or work of creativity or music or song. It takes repetition, some sweat, some tears as well. All right, Charles Finney says, oh, let's see here. Charles Finney had knowledge of how to mix, but didn't want to just use presets and turn knobs, wanted to actually know what I'm doing. 30 videos into Mix Finisher, and I'm really enjoying it and learning. Great. Yeah, thank you, Charles, for being a Mix Finisher Formula student. Happy to have you in there. I'm glad you're finding it useful. It's basically 15 years of everything that I've learned about mixing just put into short, easily digestible videos with practical production tips. If you are interested in Mix Finisher Formula, go to mixfinisher.com and download the cheat sheet there if you're not already on the email list. And Mix Finisher Formula will open to new students in the next few weeks, so stay posted on that. All right. Anything else going on here? Everyone watching right now gets one, asks Richie. Unfortunately, I don't think I have enough for everyone, so I'll have to come up with a fun way to do a giveaway as well. But if you want your copy, they are very inexpensive on Amazon, so just check them out there. Shave said, got one for me and 2 for my sons. Wow, thank you for thank you for that's awesome. I love when people actually buy one for them. You're not the only one, but I love when people tell me that they bought one of these books and they end up buying another copy because they liked it so much they put it on and send it to people that they think will find it useful. It's something that I do too, not with my own books, but I mean, I will probably send these to some people that I think would like them, but I'm a big enthusiast of giving books as gifts. So I usually try to find a gift that I think will be useful or is applicable to somebody's life or somebody's goals, and try to find a book that aligns with that. So I love that you bought one for your sons as well. That's awesome. Angela says, love the book. Noah was very cool. Yeah, thank you. That character is certainly very striking. I had a lot of fun writing him, and I have some outtakes and some sort of, there's a bunch of things that didn't make it into the book. It would be interesting to know if any of you would be interested in these sort of B-sides, if you will. So let me know about that as well. Timmer says, yes, what a great book. Thank you very much. Yeah, Angela says have only the e-version. Hard copy would be very cool. Yeah, the hard copy, the physical, because it's sort of a novel. I mean, it's written as it's a fictionalized narrative, so it's novel-esque. I wrote it as sort of a story instead of a how-to. Like if you if you read step-by-step mixing and then read this one, they are very different in structure and style. But this one is fun to read as a physical book because it is sort of has this sort of novel-esque feel to it. Cool. All right, let's see here. Richard says it's midnight in the UK. Yeah. Oh, thanks for staying up though. Alexander says, question, what's the ideal volume on the VU meter and the Dbfs? I don't use a VU meter most of the time, but when I do mastering, it's usually I try to make it as loud as I possibly can without limiting a bunch. I tend to be between maybe -11 to -14 lufs. And then I use the dynameter to make sure it's green. I use the loudness penalty plugin to make sure that it's not getting turned down. And then, yeah, so I kind of use those three plugins. I use the lufs, and then I double check that against the dynameter, and I double check that against the loudness penalty. And then I also make sure that there's a lot of, stages to basically you gain stage in a way through the plugins where you might be sending the mass, or you might be sending this mix or the stereo input or stereo output into a multiband compressor, and you want to make sure that that multiband compressor isn't squeezing too much, isn't compressing too much, but then the output of that can be, if it's a very peaky song and it has, maybe very loud kicks and snares, so that you see that the waveform sort of has a, I guess, a peak factor or whatever. And from the output of that, you want to make sure that you want to be able to squeeze it so that it's not always limiting. It's not limiting just the kick and snare. You want to squeeze the mix a little bit, but that's why I actually use a lot of parallel processing, because when it comes to sort of compressing the mix in parallel, and you add a lot of parallel compression, you're actually adding loudness from sort of the bottom out, and you're filling up the waveform from the bottom up, as opposed to squeezing and cutting off the peaks at the top. It's sort of a better way of doing it to get sort of thicker, fuller, louder mixes. There is, I think you can go on the YouTube channel. There is a video. I think I called it something like my secret weapon for louder mixes. And it talks about the sort of parallel buses on the overall mix in general. And you might pick up some tricks there that could be good for you. Cool. All right. Papa Kawaii, or however you want to say this username. How do you divide your time between production work and videos and books and email? So I don't do a lot of production work for clients anymore. I mostly help students in my insiders with Feedback Friday, and sometimes I mix their work in there and then use that as training materials for my insiders there. And that's, a few mixes here and there. But I do most of the time I spend creating educational content, and then writing. Of course, I'm trying to figure out what book to write next. Not sure what I should focus on. But as far as clients go, I don't have clients. I have students and customers. So my students are the people that read the book and have questions. My subscribers, my insiders members, and my mix finisher formula students, and I help them with their production, because I believe that if I can share all of my knowledge with everyone else, they will then go on and make better music than I can ever make. And if I've taught them how to do it themselves, there will be more great music out there in the world. And it's sort of my thought process of making sure that you pay it forward to as many people as possible, and it'll just sort of snowball from there. Actually, one of the reasons I wrote You Get What You Give is because I love this. I love this book called The Go-Giver, and The Go-Giver has one of their laws here. Let's see if I can find it here real quick. I wanted to write a book that was kind of like The Go-Giver, but less or more rock and roll, I guess, because I wanted to because it's a business book, and if you're like a music producer and a creative, you may want it to be more cool, more fun in general. So I basically wrote, so that's why I often say You Get What You Give is The Go-Giver, but for music producers and sort of home studio musicians or music industry professionals, and people have said this too, for any creative. And so the here we go. What is it here? Yeah, the law of compensation in The Go-Giver says that your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. And I think the best way for me to serve others is to teach them everything that I know when it comes to the knowledge that I acquired when I was doing live sound mixing in the home studio and that sort of stuff, because I can spread that knowledge to more people as a teacher than as a just one more mixing engineer trying to work with clients. I can reach more people and I can serve more people in general that way. That doesn't answer this question at all. How do I divide my time? Basically, I write in the morning, and I sort of run audio issues in the afternoons. Right in the morning, and then late afternoon or late morning and early afternoon, I do audio issue stuff, whether that is Feedback Friday with my insiders, creating a video for my YouTube channel, creating a video for updating the Mixed Finisher Formula course. Like I just am uploading a new update to the Mixed Finisher Formula course about gain staging, because I thought I was working on a song with 105 tracks, and there's a lot of sort of gain staging questions that popped up in my mind as I was working on the mix prep. So I just shot a quick video, and I'll be putting that into the course later on, maybe next week, I think, and then that'll open to new students in the next few weeks as well. So yeah, let's see, anything else here? And breakfast. At breakfast, I actually I usually have the same thing for breakfast every day, and it's just a green smoothie. All right. Richard says, I've just finished tweaking an album and we'll be releasing it tomorrow as it happens. Nicely done. Send me a link. Looking forward to hearing it. I'm glad that that not a lot of people pull the trigger on releasing their music, and it's something that one of the reasons I created my Insiders program is so that I help support them in their sort of release journey. They may have recorded their music, they may have written it, and they're almost ready to release it, but there's something that stops them because they're not sure if it's good enough. So Insiders is basically the program where I give them sort of the encouragement and the support they need to release their music. So, but seems like you're doing well on your own there. Scott says, Amazon screwed me on the book. I had it pre-ordered, but due to a faulty card, well, it's still there. You can always order it again. Brian says, cool, join late. We'll acquire this book also. Yeah, definitely check it out. For me, it's the most creative thing that I've probably done. And it's something I'm very, very proud of. So cool. Angela says, yes, outtakes would be cool too. Okay, good to know. Angela says as well, I had too many of those bands or artists you spoke about as the sort of horror stories in the first part of the book, when he has terrible bands and awful clients and sort of learns how to position himself with his services in general. A lot of those stories are based either on firsthand accounts that have actually happened to me as an engineer, or stories that have been told to me as well. So Donnie, hey Donnie, thanks for being a follower. I'm happy you're here. do I play an instrument also? Yes, I'm predominantly a guitar player. I also play bass, and I can dabble on the keys and sing as well. I was in a band called The Long Wait for a really long time, and we had one EP and one record out. You can find that on Spotify. The Long Wait, The Long Wait. I think it's a our debut album was self-titled, and we promptly disbanded as soon as we released it, which often happens. And actually, fun story, even though it might be slightly sad, but I'll share it with you anyway. So in the Creativity in the Kitchen that I just read earlier, it says Back Burner by Alan Garr played softly in the kitchen. So Alan Garr was one of the original members of The Long Wait, and he was a really, really good friend of ours, a friend of mine, and friend of the band's, of course. And he unfortunately passed away when the band was only a few months old back in 2011. But his music, he's one of these songwriters that like he's probably the best unknown songwriter that you like, the best songwriter you've never heard of. So look up Alan Garr as well on either Reverb Nation or Spotify, and you'll find a lot of really, really amazing songs by him. His story has not been told completely. I may have to write that down at one point. It's a little bit too sad to get into at the moment, but yes. So to answer this question, I do play acoustic guitar predominantly, but I also dabble in some other instruments. Like I play bass because one time there was a band that needed a bass player, and because they were going to go on tour, so I lied and said, yes, I play bass, and thinking in the back of the head, how hard can it be? I can play guitar. I'll just pick up the bass and I'll figure it out. Luckily, they were Americana band, so there was a lot of just 1 and 5s and a few little sort of notes to connect the chords. So it wasn't I didn't need to be a crazy good bass player in order to play well with them. But sometimes you have to fake it until you make it. All right. Richard says, that's very generous of you to share your knowledge. Yeah, that's why I'm here. That's what I've been doing for 10 years, and it seems to be working out pretty well for me. I'm amazed and not annoyed by the emails and info you share. Thank you so much for saying that. I have a lot to say, and I always I'm glad that you don't hate when I think that this is something that people should know about, whether it's an EQ trick or talking about my book or sharing a story from an insider or just sort of either recommending something or talking about something important to me. I love the fact that I can't just talk about mixing. It has to be a little more involved than that. So I like to talk about many of the life lessons or analogies, how something like cooking in the kitchen can be very similar to putting a great mix or a great production together. So I am predominantly a writer and a teacher, and then audio engineer, musician, sort of not, I wouldn't necessarily say second, but I have evolved into being more in the teaching and writer role than in the musician mixing role in general. And because I can teach people how to do it better than I can do it myself, that's success to me. All right. It just says, thank you. Yeah, we're talking about the song from the album from earlier. Donnie says, thank you for being one of the first that educated us on what other engineers were keeping secret. Yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily that many secrets. It's really just about the process, the practice, and the learning what the buttons do. And then, every time, because I also learn, I'm continuously a learner and I'm always learning something new. So whenever I learn something that I think is beneficial for you to know as well, that's when I sit down, write my email, send it to you, and hopefully you'll like what I have to say. So, all right. Angelo says, thank you. Time for dinner. I read a lot, so very welcome to your books or ideas. Thank you so much. And I think that is a great place to leave it for today. It's been 45 minutes, and thank you all for coming out and hanging out with me. If you want to grab the new book, go to yougetwhatyougivebook.com and grab the paperback, and I will figure out a good way to do some maybe some either fun giveaways, or I don't know if anybody cares about getting a personalized or autograph or a signed book, but maybe that's something that I can do for you guys too. Just so let me know. And in the meantime, keep reading those emails, because I'll keep sending them out. All right, take it easy. Have a good day, and remember to use your ears.